Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I want to talk to you about one of the most painful things that I experience as having private clients of individuals who are in relationships with people who have PMDD, or for us who have PMDD. And one of the most painful things that I've ever experienced in my PMDD relationships, and that has been the feeling of hopelessness, feeling like my relationship is always going to be like this. I'm not happy. I'm not seeing a way out of this. I'm seeing this pattern, and I'm really feeling like my whole life is just going to look like this for the rest of my life. And how much longer can I take this? And I remember really thinking about this when I was in a place in my relationships with PMDD where I felt stuck, where I felt like I had tried things, they didn't work. I had tried to communicate my feelings to my partner, it didn't work. I had tried to get them to change, it didn't work. I had tried to get them to understand me, it didn't work. And so you really get into this place of feeling helpless and hopeless. And this is where a lot of private clients start to come to me to work privately with me, because you kind of, this is like a last resort kind of thing. When we always see in the movies where it's like, when the couple is about to break up, what is the first thing that they say? Let's try counseling. And so when I have couples come to me and I'm listening to everything that they've tried, or even, everything that they haven't tried, and they're just in this place of, it is what it is. You know what I mean? You can almost hear and see the hopelessness in their eyes, in their mannerisms. They're like, they're there, but they're not really there. They're uninterested. They just pretty much are willing to accept the bare minimum. Like, if we could just stop the suffering, I would be fine. Like, they're not even getting to a point where they're actually acknowledging what they want in an intimate relationship. They just want to stop suffering in the relationship. And I remember that's how I was for so long, because the suffering was so overwhelming that I said, if I could just stop suffering, I think I would be happy in my relationship. But honestly, there were so many other things that I needed, but I couldn't even get to that point of even seeing what I needed in the relationship, because it was clouded by the suffering. And the suffering came from months and months and months of arguing and fighting. I went from every 3 months we would argue, to every 2 months we would argue and fight, to every single month it was expected. And I think you get into the realm with PMDD of the hopelessness when it's every single month. That's when you're in a place of like, wait a minute, I don't even get a break. I don't get a chance to recover. I just finished arguing with my partner over this issue. We really didn't address it. And now I have a whole nother issue. And so what ends up happening is you're piling up all of the issues that you have with your partner until you feel hopeless, because it's so overwhelming. There's too many issues to handle all at once. And I always tell my private clients, when you're coming to work with me, we're unpacking years of trauma. So we have those individuals that are thinking that they're just going to come to me one time and in one session they're going to be cured. But to be quite honest, and I try to be as honest as I can with my private clients, it's going to take some time. I've had private clients now that I've worked with for 3 years, and we're still unpacking things. Does that mean it's going to take you 3 years? No, but what I'm saying is, being that PMDD is cyclical, there's always something being added to the equation. So when you're trying to heal trauma, when you're trying to heal past fights and arguments and offenses and triggers and things, and you're trying to move forward, when every month there's new things added to it, it makes it really difficult to move forward when we haven't healed the past. So a lot of times when you're coming on private sessions, or you're filling out the application to work with me and you're saying, I just need to deal with this one thing, it's never just one thing. It is never just one issue that you have with your partner. It is the one issue may be triggering all of the other things, but there's so much trauma there. There's so many things, like before you even recognize that you had PMDD, like just think about it right now. Before you, and we all know that moment where we recognize that we have PMDD, and we had like that aha moment where it was like, oh, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm going through. And I remember like thinking back to all of the ways that I handled situations before I really knew what PMDD was, before I really knew, you know, what I was even experiencing. I just knew I was experiencing something that was horrible, and it happened every single month. So when I take myself back earlier to my journey, I've had PMDD for over 18 years now. And I remember earlier, my thing was blaming the other person. My toxic trait in PMDD is blaming. Everybody has a toxic trait, something that they do, something that they're guilty of that just, it's not good. And my whole thing was, I wasn't the problem, they were the problem. And did they do things that triggered me? Absolutely. But were they doing it maliciously? No. And it took me so much time. So much time. And even 18 years later, I'm still discovering things that I need to work on within myself in PMDD relationships. So it doesn't end. And I don't feel like you ever get to a point where it's like, oh, I've learned enough, and I'm good to go. This is why I always tell my private clients, it's so important to stay consistent with your sessions with me, because once things start to pile up and we're trying to uncover so many things, it becomes overwhelming, and you get to this sense of hopelessness, because you're like, this is too much. And it does seem like it's too much. It does seem like it's overwhelming, because it's not just about the thing that they did. It's about the thing that they originally did. And this thing is triggering it. And I just think to myself, when I was feeling hopeless, that I felt really stuck. I remember feeling really stuck and feeling like I know what I wanted for my life. And again, it always comes back to peace for me and for a lot of my private clients. And when I say I just want peace, it's because I was just filled with so much chaos and confusion. But I think when we get into that realm of feeling like it's always going to be like this, subconsciously, your brain is giving up on the relationship. And this is what leads to the PMDD monthly breakups. This is why every single time that you get into an argument with your partner, you're saying, I can't do this. We shouldn't do this. I'm out. Even if you don't mean it, that's immediately what you're thinking, because you're feeling hopeless. You're like, I don't know what to do. The best thing to do is just to leave the relationship. So I'm going to talk to you about what hopelessness looks like in your PMDD relationship. And then I'm also going to give you some tools, as I always do. But one of the things that I really want you to do, I'm starting a trauma course, and it's completely free. It's called Trauma Transformations. And I really wanted to open it up to the public, because I do a lot of public speaking events. I do a lot of working with companies with trauma and relationships and courses and all of these things. And I asked them, could I open it up to the public? And they said yes. So I'm going to be doing this for 8 weeks. It's going to start on August the 8th. All you need to do is to just email me, rose@inlovewithpmdd.com, and give me your first name, last name, email, and phone number, and I will add you, and you will get a Zoom link to start. It's on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm not sure if I'm going to do recordings of these sessions because we get really in depth with these. Whenever I've facilitated these before, it's been really in depth and private, and I would have to get a consent from everybody. But for right now, you can join live Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time in the US. And we're going to just be unpacking a lot of trauma. And honestly, when you work with me privately, this is where we start. So it would honestly be like getting 8 weeks of free counseling sessions with me in a group environment because we literally, I'm keeping it small. I don't do big groups. You know, I was going to talk about that because I did the Breakup Proof Academy, I believe it's last year, 2023. And then I closed it out because I needed to really sit with myself and think about how do I best serve my clients. And I know one-on-one is always my number one thing, but I also know I'm just one person. And so I have clients in over 60 countries, and I'm constantly on sessions back to back to back. And I really was just thinking like I really want to serve more people, but I run out of time sometimes, and I'm going to start doing something similar to what I'm offering you right now, which is small group sessions. I don't really think that I'm meant for big giant groups with hundreds of people. There's so many Facebook groups out there with hundreds of people. There's so many blogs and Reddit and all of these things that have like hundreds of people because again, PMDD is approximately 1 in 20 women. So a lot of people, as they're learning about it, they're getting in community. And I love that. And I love that they have those communities. And I always encourage, like even when my private clients come to me and say that they're in these groups, like I love that they're in them. And I think that they're very supportive, but I also know the power and the impact of having one-on-one attention to what you're specifically going through in your PMDD relationship. And you don't get that in those big giant groups unless you're putting, kind of like putting your business out to like hundreds of people and hoping that someone answers and someone relates. But what I like doing in small group settings is the other person. You know them, you can connect with them, you can relate to them, you remember their name. Like I love knowing personal details about my private clients. And I feel like if I had hundreds and hundreds of people in this group, like I would be doing them a disservice because a lot of why I'm so effective with PMDD relationships and my private clients is because I give you that individual attention and because you feel the energy that I'm able to give you, the focus that I'm able to give you, that I'm not answering your question and then moving on to 75 other people. I'm also on TikTok now, which I love, and I go live very periodically. And through the month of August, I'm trying to find a time that really works well with my schedule to say, okay, I'm going live at this particular time. And I think for TikTok, it's going to have to be evenings because TikTok, I can be on there for like an hour and a half. And I know I've met a couple of my new private clients on TikTok just from just being up late, doing a lot of work and just popping on live, answering questions, connecting with you. And a lot of those sessions that I connected on lives were also small groups, one-on-ones. Like it wasn't a lot of people on there. And I am really good with getting to know you and being able to diagnose and triage a lot of your symptoms and what it is that you need to do and give you specific mantras to use like I do with my private clients. And so I think on TikTok, I can commit to something in the evenings. My morning routine is so precious to me that I'm not really able to do everything that I do if I don't have my morning routine. So I remember when I was thinking about going live, I was like, oh, I want to go live in the mornings, but I don't want to sacrifice my own self-care. I don't want to sacrifice my morning routine for the sake of serving you because it's not going to serve you. So I think I'm going to stick to evenings, and I think somewhere around, I could probably commit to 7 p.m. because some days in PMDD, I go to bed really, really early because I need to catch up on rest. And I'm actually brainstorming this while I'm on this podcast that I'm really thinking about the time. And I think 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, because I really want to be able to do it in a way that is consistent to where, even though I have private clients in so many countries, that you can kind of set an alarm and kind of say, okay, I'm going to come on here and connect in, or I have a question or something that, I know the podcast is free and you can listen to as many as you want on repeat. And I'm just trying to connect in a deeper, more personalized way. So that you can get that individualized like attention, because I know how impactful that can be, and especially when you need it in the moment. So I think I'm going to stick to 7 p.m. I'm going to try it for the month of August. Do I have any traveling? I think I go to Vegas. I go to Vegas August the 23rd. So I'm also going to start putting my schedule up, because I know I have a lot of private clients that are in the places where I travel, and I've done some one-on-one private sessions in person, but I feel like I don't really release when I'm traveling. And so people are like, how come you didn't tell me, that you were in my town or whatever? And I will be going international as well. I'll be in Thailand pretty soon, which I'm really excited about. I'm going to Phuket in Thailand, and I thought it was called, I can't say it because I have a clean podcast, but if you know what I mean, you know what I thought it was called. But yeah, I'm going to be going there for a while. So I'm going to start, I really, honestly, and this is a very vulnerable moment. If you, do I want to put this out here? If you know how to, well, no, I'm going to get somebody to do it. I'm probably going to go on Fiverr, because what I basically need to do is redo my website. I know how to do it, but I feel like it takes me so long. Like, I have all the information. I just really don't have the time to redo my whole website. But I have really rebranded myself since the breakup, honestly. Like, a lot of things have changed. So slowly but surely I'm changing things. But I really, really, I'm gonna do a website relaunch so it can make it really easier for you, because I really like it when it's very simple. When we're in PMDD, if something seems so overwhelming, we're probably not going to do it. So yeah, so I'm putting this down, TikTok, starting in August at 7 p.m. But yes, okay, so let's get back to this, the signs of hopelessness. And if you read my dissertation, which I know a lot of you have, a lot of partners actually have read my dissertation when they first learned about me. And it's a situation where I wrote my dissertation about partners who are suffering in their relationships with individuals who have PMDD, meaning I wrote my dissertation on the partner, not on the person that has PMDD. I interviewed both in the relationship, but my focus was on the partner. And one of the main things that I was noticing was the hopelessness. And hopelessness also is one of the indicators of suicidal ideations and suicidal attempts. So that's why I really honed in on it, because a lot of times they think the partners, don't really have symptoms. It's like, oh, you don't have PMDD, but they go through a sense of hopelessness, meaning they're not able to help their partner who is suffering in PMDD. They don't know what to do in the relationship. They know they want to be with the person, but they don't have the tools, and they're feeling so hopeless. And it leads to, suicidal ideations. I've had private clients who have, like panic attacks, and like they have, just bouts of anxiety. They give bouts of depression. They have all of these symptoms, and they're not even the ones that have PMDD. It's just because they're just trying to navigate a relationship. So I'm going to show you what some signs are that you have hopelessness in your PMDD relationship. But remember, if you want to join that trauma course, Trauma Transformations, to really help you unpack the trauma, just DM me on Instagram. It's actually Dr. Rose _ in love with PMDD. Because that really helps people to know who I am and also my company. So I did change the name. And then also you can just email me, Rose at In Love with PMDD. And actually there's a new thing. I think it's on Apple Podcasts where you can send me an actual text message. It's in the show notes. You'll see a little link. It says send me a text message. But here are some signs that you have hopelessness in your relationship. Persistent negative feelings. If you consistently on a monthly basis are now in that place where you're feeling sad, where you're feeling frustrated, where you're feeling anger, where you're feeling resentment towards your PMDD partner, you have hopelessness in your relationship. And it is because you're not seeing a way out, like I said earlier, and you're starting to resent maybe that your partner has PMDD. Maybe you're starting to resent that your partner doesn't have PMDD. I know there's so many times a lot of my private clients will say, well, my partner doesn't have PMDD, so what's their excuse? It's kind of like you feel like you're suffering, you're carrying the whole relationship on your back, you're doing all these things, and they're just pretty much coasting along. So the next sign that you have hopelessness in your relationship is there's a lack of communication. I remember this was a big one for me because I started to feel so frustrated that I started to have an avoidant attachment style. And what that meant was I kept all of the communication very surface level. Like we just didn't really talk about things. Like we talked about, oh, how was your day? How was your night? We did this, we did that. Like that was it. There was no intimacy. There was no talking, like we used to before about everything because I felt like I needed to pick and choose what I said. I was walking on eggshells because anything I said can and will be used against me in the court of law, because it could be twisted into something else. Like I could become a narcissist. I could become manipulative. I could be blamed and shamed for all of these things because everything was so chaotic that it's almost like all of my words were being twisted and I just felt really misunderstood. So I got to a point where I just didn't say anything. I was like, well, can't get in trouble if I don't say nothing. And what happens is there's this emotional distance, which is the number 3. It's the third way that there's hopelessness in your relationship. You're feeling emotionally detached, and not just in PMDD. Also, when you're in your follicular phase, you're feeling distant. There's no intimacy. There's no support. You're constantly saying, my partner's not supportive. My partner's not supportive. And it's because you're feeling hopeless. You're just like, oh, I guess this is the person that I'm going to be with forever. I think it's really sad because I have very high expectations for partners. And I know that about myself. I put my partner in such high regard, meaning I put them on a pedestal consciously. It's not an unconscious thing, but I just feel like, you know, and I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks this, but newsflash, there's 7 billion people. I believe it's 8 billion now. We're not even gonna, 8 billion people on this planet. 8 billion people on this planet. And when you're choosing to be with one, my standards are pretty high. Pretty high because I am saying I don't want to be with, to share my life with any of these other 8 billion people. I just want you. That is huge. So when I ask you on private sessions and when I ask you on here, like, is your PMDD partner your person? What I mean is your PMDD partner your person in a sea of 8 billion people? Do you know how powerful that is to say that? Do you know how amazing that person should and needs to be in order for you to not be with anyone else? And I don't mean that in a way of being like egotistical, but it is a huge thing when you're choosing to be in a relationship with someone. There's a huge responsibility that's tied to that. And I feel like when I got into this sense of hopelessness, it is because the person that I had chosen was not living up to the expectations that I set. And I didn't feel guilty about that. I will admit that every single time that I've broken up with an ex PMDD partner, it's because I've lost interest due to the way that they have treated me, what they have shown me, how they loved me or lack thereof, how they handled me. I think what happens, and my friend said this, and I think it's very true for me. I think what happens in relationships for me is, and you know this, if you're my private client, you know me personally, I'm pretty open. I'm a very nice person. I'm a very kind person. I'm a very sweet person. I'm a very forgiving person. I can let a lot of stuff go. Will it trigger me? Will it bother me? I can process a lot of things. I can take on a lot of things. I'll accept a lot of things until I don't. So I'm very black and white in that area. I will take it and take it and take it until I don't. And I think it's so shocking when I don't, when I get to that point where it's like, I'm not taking this anymore, because there's very few times that there's any back and forth for me. Once the decision is made in my mind and I've lost interest, meaning I have a significant decline in interest in spending time with you and sharing plans with you and planning my future with you, I'm not going to beg you. I will ask you. I will ask you. I will remind you. I will encourage you. I will all of these things. But I get to a point where if I feel like it's not something that you really want to do, and I feel like I'm going to have to be pushing you to do it for the entirety of our relationship, I lose interest because I have no interest in forcing anyone to do anything. I have no interest in forcing anyone to be in a relationship with me. I have no interest in forcing someone to stay in somewhere where they're clearly showing me that they're not happy. So I lose interest in partners when they lose interest in the relationship, to make it clear. When you're no longer prioritizing the relationship, when you start making excuses and telling me that work was busy and so, I have to do this with the kids and I have to do, I will let you. I will open the door, because what I'm not going to do is be put on the back burner while you put all of these other things in front of me that you have had on your plate the whole time. And you're just now, I know that it's a conscious choice that you're choosing to put me on the back burner. And what I mean by that is you've juggled all of these things the whole time in the relationship. And now all of a sudden I need to be put on the back burner. It's because you don't value me anymore. When someone stops valuing you, it shows. When someone stops prioritizing you, it shows. The excuses come in like a flood. And then the hopelessness comes in, like, that's when I get hopeless. I'm like, well, there's no changing this now, because you're not even, I'm trying to tell you like, hey, babe, we need to work on this. We need to have private sessions with Dr. Rose, or we need to listen to her podcast, or we need to work on this, or we need to do that. And you're just like, oh yeah, I'll get to it. Yeah, you're right. Or okay, or maybe we don't, no, we can do it ourselves. When you listen, I'm not going to beg you, because begging doesn't work. Newsflash for individuals: begging your partner to do something doesn't work. It repels them. The more you beg them, the more you nag them, the less that they're going to do what it is that you need them to do or you want them to do. I remember wasting my time like that, thinking that I need to over explain it, thinking that maybe they don't understand if I just explain it to them this way. No, they understand it very clearly. They're just not going to do it. Like, people who are going to do something, it doesn't take them long to do it. It does not take them long to do it at all. They're either going to do it or they're not. And I remember I was working with a private client this week, and they were going back and forth, and they're like, oh, I feel like I keep, my partner's kind of like in the middle. Like, 1 minute they want to work on it, 1 minute they don't, 1 minute they're saying that this, and it was very confusing. And I said, okay, let's get clarity on what it is. What changes do you need to see in the relationship? And we wrote them all down in categories. And then I said, the next time that they come to you and they say that they want to work on things, blah, 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 be very clear. Because some people just need you to be clear. This is what you need, and that's it. If you want to make this work, this is what needs to happen. Because when you're in that place of hopelessness, what you need to see are results. You need to see something shift and something change. But if you're in that place of refusing to believe that things are going to change, they're not going to change. So what I told my private client to do was to just make this list, and every single time that they said that they wanted to get back with you or talk to you or whatever, just say, hey, these are the things that I'm requiring. And it's very clear. Either you're willing to do them or you're not. Because what you're needing is not going to change. It's whether they're actually going to do it that you're confused about. Because for me, once I make it very clear, hey, this is what needs to happen. And because I'm always working on myself. I'm not one of those people that say, oh, you need to work on this and I don't have anything to work on. But I feel like if I'm working on something, you need to be working on something as well. Like, you're not perfect. Newsflash. Pretty sure you know this, but you're not perfect. And so when you're in a situation where your relationship is not growing, and you're the only one that's trying to grow, you're the only one that's trying to change, that's when you start feeling trapped. So that's the next way that you're in this state of hopelessness, because you're like, even no matter what I do, I change so many things about myself. I try to be there for them more. I try to support them more. I try to love them more. And I feel trapped and stuck in the relationship because you're stuck with someone that's not willing to change what it is that they're doing. And you're knowing that even if you changed everything, it's not going to change them. And so feeling trapped for me is like, I am I say this all the time. I'm a free spirit. I'm a free spirit. I'm a free spirit. I'm an Enneagram 7. I don't like to be trapped in anything that's uncomfortable. I want my partner to be free. I want my clients to be free. I want me to be free. Because when you're feeling stuck and you're feeling trapped, there's so much fear in that. And then you start to think about, why am I with this person? You start to be with a person due to fear, due to financial dependence, due to what other people are going to think, due to what family's going to think, due to what the kids are going to think, due to everything else, but for the actual reason that you're supposed to be being with this person. You're supposed to be being with this person because this is your person. You're feeling close and you're supposed to be feeling close and intimate and connected with this person, but you're not. But you're forcing yourself to stay in this situation out of obligation. And I remember feeling like that. I was like, what is everybody going to say if I break up? What are my private clients going to say? What is my daughter going to say? Like, it was so much noise in my head last year. I think at this time last year, actually. I was like, what is everybody going to think? Blah, blah, blah. What am I going to do? And then I just, when I really made the decision is when I shut down the noise and I blocked everybody else out. And I really thought about the kind of life that I wanted to live and what I was offering. And I said to myself, because I was in that hopeless state, how much more can you give? And so when I got into this hopeless state, I started to do more things. I started to give more effort. I started to say, hey, let's try this. Let's start talking every Sunday. Like, let's start having private sessions again. I didn't give up easily. When I was in that state of hopelessness, it kind of made me be more creative in the things that I was doing because, again, hopelessness comes from a realm of avoidance. When you start avoiding conflict, when you start avoiding difficult conversations, all of those unresolved issues are going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger, and small things become big things. And it's all because you're in that state of hopelessness and you're avoiding it. You don't want to have that difficult conversation and you're thinking, oh, we did really good this month. We didn't even argue. Yeah, because you didn't talk. It's easy to not argue when you're being surface level and you're not really talking. Another thing that leads to hopelessness is a constant criticism. If you feel like your partner is constantly criticizing you, they're constantly blaming you, they're constantly shaming you, you feel like you can't get anything right, you're not good enough, your self-worth, your self-esteem is in the trash because of all of the hurtful things that they've been saying to you, you're going to feel hopeless. You're going to be like, I remember feeling like that. If you're going to call me a piece of crap, then I mean, I don't know what to do. Like, if this is what you think of me, when you attack my character and say things about me that are horrible, I feel helpless because I feel like if this is who you really think that I am, if this is the type of person that you really think that I am, this nasty, disgusting, harmful person, why are you even with me? And I know you've said this before, either to yourself or to your partner. Why are they even with me? If all the stuff that they're yelling at me in the middle of this argument is true, then why would they want to be with somebody like that? I wouldn't want to be with somebody like that. And then you start to feel hopeless because you're like, well, I can't change me. I'm literally giving everything that I have to give. It's like that Aretha Franklin song, giving you the best that I got. Giving you the best that I got, baby. I've been singing a lot today, but that's how I feel. I give everything until I have nothing left. And not at my expense. So I don't mean I give everything, meaning I have nothing left for myself, but I mean, when I get into this place of feeling hopeless, like I start pulling out all the stops. I start rearranging my priorities to Some people, when they get in relationships and they start having issues, they start putting their relationship on the back burner and making it less important. When I start to feel hopeless, I start making it more important. I start focusing in more on what the relationship is because I'm trying to save it. Like no one ever survives when if somebody dropped you in the ocean, you wouldn't survive by just stop pedaling in the water. You survive when you feel like you're going down, when you're drowning, what do? You pedal more. You whip them hands around even faster. You swim faster. You do all those things more when you feel like you're drowning. If you just stop, everybody doesn't float. You float for a while and then you sink. The relationship sinks. So I just want you to imagine that. Imagine you're in this pool of water and you're jumping in the deep end and you have all of these issues and you feel like you're going down. You feel like you're drowning, legit drowning. And I know you've all been there, especially if you have PMDD. You're drowning in issues. You're drowning in bitterness. You're drowning in resentment. You're drowning in unforgiveness. You're going down. If you want to go up, you have to start moving your arms and your hands and your body. And a lot of you need to come to the surface of the relationship, and it's going to take you a lot of pedaling and waving your arms around to get to the top because you're so far down there. But the way that people get to that point of feeling like they're ready to swim to the top is because they're so hopeless and they're feeling like they're suffocating, feeling trapped. The next sign that you have hopelessness in your relationship is you have infidelity or thoughts of infidelity, because cheating always starts in your mind. When you start saying things like, maybe we aren't compatible, well, guess what? What did I say earlier? There's 8 billion people in the world. So what you're basically saying is you're not compatible with your partner, but you're probably compatible with somebody else. So you're like indirectly saying that you're weighing your options. I remember one time with my ex-PMDD partner, I said something about snoring because, that was my biggest thing in our relationship. I was like, oh, we need to do something about your snoring. And he literally said to me, I may get this issue fixed with my snoring, but it's probably not going to be while I'm with you. And I was like, what? What? Like, when did we start talking about being with anybody else? Like that was the sign of hopelessness. He was thinking like, well, I may fix this thing about myself and it'll benefit somebody else, but it's not going to benefit you because I ain't going to be here. I was shooketh. That's how I know that he was in that stage of hopelessness, because he mentioned like me cheating because he had issues with like being cheated on before, but he never mentioned him being with somebody else. And I was like, oh, we are here. We are here in the realm of hopelessness. And the next thing that comes up, and it's very common when you're in this place of hopelessness in your relationship, is no sex, no affection, no intimacy, no real form of physical closeness. You're like roommates, strangers in the night. Like a lot of times, private clients will tell me they used to connect with having sex as a form of like, if things are really bad in the relationship, then they reconnect to have sex and then it makes things better, which it does. But now you're not even doing that. So the disconnection that you're feeling, you're just more disconnected. You're getting further and further and further apart. And that for me, that's a scary place to be. And the reason why I say that is because when you have a lack of physical intimacy, pretty much physical intimacy is one of the few things that separates your relationship from any other relationship. Meaning you can have a really, really good friend, like a best friend. Like I have best friends and I talk to them daily, but I'm not having sex with them. My partner was the only person I was having sex with. And that's what made that relationship special. And that's what made that relationship different. And that's what set that person apart. And that's what made them feel closest to me. I was the closest with my partner than anyone else. When you share your body with someone, this will be a whole nother episode. When you share your body with someone, that is a powerful entity, meaning you're connecting in a way that you're not connecting with anyone else. And there's so many chemicals that are produced, the serotonin, the dopamine, the oxytocin, all of these chemicals that are making you feel closer to your partner. When you remove them, you feel further away because you don't have that constant reaffirming that this is my person. And that's why sex is so powerful. That's why affection is so powerful. That's why closeness is cuddling and hugging and kissing and all of these things is so powerful. And that's why you should not do it lightly with just any old person. For those of you that are dating, please do not share your body with just anyone and you have PMDD, because you're going to be wondering why you can't get rid of them in your mind and your body. And it's because you've connected yourself to them and you're thinking that it's going to be just a fling or whatever, and it's not. And you have to break that off of you. That's a whole nother topic. But the last way that, there's hopelessness in your relationship is no one is willing to improve. There's no effort. Again, you can't force someone to do the things. And when I see that there's no effort, I am like really hopeless. Like I remember nagging, and I was annoying myself because I don't like nagging, but I was really trying to like drill it in. Hey, we need to do this, because I felt the relationship slipping away. So when you're in that state of hopelessness, you can literally feel the relationship slip away, and it's so scary for me. It's so scary because I'm just like, no, 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 no. Like, it's a big deal. But sometimes things that are a big deal for you may not even be a big deal to your partner. And that's hurtful too, because you're like, if I'm supposed to be important to you, if I'm supposed to be important, like, why is it not important to you too? So what happens is when you're in PMDD and you experience hopelessness, I'm going to give you some symptoms that are affected. Because again, everything that we go through, PMDD is affected by it. So we already have mood swings, right? But when you have hopelessness in your relationship, it exasperates the mood fluctuations. This means more irritability, more PMDD rage, more depression, more anxiety. So this is why you need to know how severe helplessness is. And when we get into that realm of anxiety, it's causing you to have those panic attacks and this constant worry and stress about the future of the relationship. You just want to figure it out. Like, I was in that place where I just wanted to figure out, like, what are we doing? What's going on? And it's almost like I need an answer in order to have peace. And when you're in that realm of being in your luteal phase and being in PMDD and not really being sure about your relationship, that's such a harmful place to be, because it's like you're never able to relax. You're always on high alert. You're always hyper vigilant. You're always expecting the worst. You're always expecting that things are going to stay the way that they are. You're always expecting, that your partner is going to say something that's going to hurt your feelings. You're expecting the worst. And the next thing that is impacted is the depression. When I was in that place of hopelessness, I was laying in my bed. I was crying. I was constantly crying in the shower. I was crying when I was getting ready. I didn't want to get ready. I felt really helpless in my body. I think I was in that place. I was in the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful places. I was in Mexico. I was in Cabo, Mexico. And I remember being in this beautiful place and feeling so dark. And it was so bright where I was. And I was just even beating myself up over not being able to enjoy the moment, because I think a lot of times vacations have been kind of like my outlet and to kind of get a chance to decompress. But I couldn't believe that I was in this beautiful place and I was feeling horrible about my relationship. And I got into a really deep depressive episode. And I had all of this sadness, and I just, I started to grieve and mourn the death of my relationship before I had even broken up, because I got into this place where I was like, this is it. And the reason why I knew it was because I had done all these like, like last resort kind of things. And I remember the last time me and my partner had sex, I remember how it felt. And I remember crying afterwards and feeling completely broken, completely broken. And just thinking about it right now, oh my God, I'm gonna cry. Just thinking about it right now, I was just so sad that it had actually, it's like I knew once we had connected or not connected and had sex, I just knew that it was over and it was done with. And I felt like I was at the funeral of my relationship because the hopelessness was everything that I had tried, everything that I felt like I had forced, everything that I was fighting for was gone and was done. And I got to this place of, which is number 4, this emotional exhaustion. I was so burnt out. I was so tired that I could barely function with my day-to-day activities and responsibilities because I was just so overwhelmed with the highs and the lows of the relationship, the uncertainty, the sadness. And what it really did was going to the next thing, the way it impacted me in PMDD was I started to withdraw from like social activities. You know, people asked me that I want to go places, want to do things. I was like, no, I actually don't. And I'm normally like an outgoing person. I'm what you call a no. My dog is about to bark. I'm normally an ambivert. That's what I am. I'm a mixture of an extrovert and an introvert, meaning I love to go out and about. I love to explore. I love to travel, but I also enjoy time for myself. And at this point, when I was feeling hopeless in my PMDD relationship, I just wanted to spend time alone. And I didn't even want to go out. Like normally, even if I spent time alone, I would still like to go out and do things. I would just do them by myself. I didn't want to go anywhere. And I felt really lonely because I felt like nobody understood. And it was so much that they didn't understand. It felt like I would have to pile like all of what happened in the relationship in order for them to actually get it. But then I didn't feel like they were going to get it. And then I also felt like, what are they going to think? Like there was just so much that was going on. And it started to impact, which is the next thing is my sleep. I started to have really bad insomnia because I was exhausted, I was tired, but I couldn't go to sleep because I couldn't stop my brain from going. The hopelessness was just making me have all of these worst case scenario thoughts going through my head. What if this and what if this and all of these things, and I couldn't answer the what ifs because when you're dealing with hopelessness and you're not really connected to your partner, it's like you're dealing with it all on your own, which I was. And it was so painful for me. Um, when I went into PMDD, this is the next way that it shows up in PMDD is that it was hard for me to cope with my symptoms the way I used to before. Because one of the ways that I cope with my symptoms was to do my morning routine. And all of a sudden, I didn't want to do my morning routine or I shortened my morning routine. And you know what happened when I did that? It caused my self-esteem to go lower. I started to gain weight. I started to feel unattractive. I started to, because, you know, stress impacts that too. Like when you're stressed out, you gain weight. When for me, if I start looking a certain way in my body, it really messes with my head. I'm not going to lie. If I start letting myself gain weight, if I start letting myself get acne or like when my skin starts breaking out, like the physical, the physical effects of what I'm going through internally really mess with me because I feel like that's one of the small things that I have control over is my body. I can work out, I can eat healthy, and I can control the way I look at my body. When you take that away from me, I'm not good because there's so much in PMDD that I can't control. The intrusive thoughts. I can't control them. I can choose how I respond to them and I can use the tools, but I can't really control them. And that's That's a hopeless place to be. It's a hopeless place to be because I get into that realm of like, well, what am I going to do about it? So I remember when I started working on myself and I said, you know what, I'm in this place of hopelessness and I've worked with a lot of private clients that have been in this place and I'm going to give you the tools of what you can do to really turn your your mindset around with feeling hopeless in your relationship. And I remember thinking to myself, the first thing I need to do is to rewire my PMDD brain and say to myself, no matter how bad this seems right now, it can turn around. I can feel better. I can feel better. And I think one of the things that was causing me to be hopeless was that I was feeling like it's impossible for me to feel better. I'm always going to feel like this. I'm never going to be with someone that's going to fulfill me. That was like my biggest fear before I met my partner. And then I met my partner. And then now I was feeling the same way. So I was like, dang, I just can't, you know, get it right. Like, what if I'm spend my life and I never find someone that fulfills me, that loves me, that's gentle with me, that loves me the way I need to be loved. I don't think that I've ever gotten to a point where I really feel like I can't get someone to love me or there's no one that's going to love me. Plenty of people can love me. Plenty of people can love you. But is it going to be the way that you need to be loved? That's what we need to really focus on. It's not just about having someone. So a lot of times when you're thinking like, oh, I could just be with somebody else. No, 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 no. You can't recreate your person. Your person is your person. You're not going to find the same qualities that you have in your person in somebody else. You're just not going to. They may have some aspects of it, but there's some part of your person, your PMDD partner, that you would have to give up if you chose to be with somebody else. And that was the biggest thing that I have to always remind private clients of, because they sometimes when you're in PMDD, you think it's so simple. I'll just be with somebody else, like in your mind, even if you're not saying it out loud. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking because I've thought it myself. I'm like, you know what? I'll just get me another partner. I'll just get me a nice person, someone that talks to me nicer. But what is it that I would be giving up? Dating has taught me that I can find someone with the individual qualities that I love and adore, but they're always missing something. It's like I can't get the combo pack. Like there's always like, yeah, they're really nice and kind, but they're really passive and lazy. Like one of the things that I admired the most about my ex-PMDD partner was his energy, his passion, the way he loved me in a sense of I never had to second guess his motives, his intentions, all of these things. He was very like in your face, like I'm all in, I love you, until he wasn't. Like when he was all in, he was all in. And I know what that feels like. And I remember being in that place of hopelessness because I remember feeling like unsure if he was all in, and it's because he wasn't all in. And I remember thinking, well, this is the end, because once you are with someone that's all in, it's very hard to be with a very lazy, passive person. And by lazy, I mean they're not being very clear on their intentions. They're all over the place. They're like aloof. They're like not very expressive. They're not very passionate. They're kind of like, I'm here, aren't I? Like I can never be with somebody like that. If you think your mere existence is enough to keep me, good luck. Like, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So what I had learned when I was in this state of hopelessness was my life is all about what I accept within it. I had to start taking responsibility for where I was in my PMDD relationship. I was there in that state in my relationship because of what I had accepted. I had accepted months of, how do I put this? Not the best treatment in a sense of prioritization. Let's put it like that. I was not being prioritized in a way that I knew that I deserved. And I kept making excuses for my partner as to they have a lot going on, they have this and this. But honestly, the relationship started to slip when it started not being a priority. When I started making those excuses and accepting those excuses, and I had to really um, take responsibility for I allowed this. I allowed it to get to this far to where I am now begging for the bare minimum. I'm begging for breadcrumbs right now. And my self-esteem had taken a hit because I would have never, never accepted the treatment that I was accepting towards the end of my last relationship. I would have never accepted in the beginning. If somebody would have treated me like that, no, they wouldn't have gotten past the front door. But I had gone from having all of this effort, all of this prioritization to just accepting, like, well, if you're going to yell at me, if you're going to cuss at me, at least apologize afterwards. Like, what? What? Like, I had to really rebuild myself because when I was looking at it, because of that state of hopelessness and desperation to save my relationship, um, I had accepted a lot of what I was suffering with, and it was my fault. I should have never accepted it. And so I got to this point where when I was trying to kind of heal myself from the hopelessness, is I I said this mantra, and it might really, really help you. And it says, I'm not going to allow where I am to define where I always will be. I'm not going to allow where I am in my PMDD relationship to define where I will always be. Meaning, I'm not always going to feel this way about my partner. I'm not always going to feel this way about my relationship. I'm not always going to feel this way about myself. I had to develop this belief that where I was not where I was going to stay. I was not stuck. I have a mentor that says, you're not stuck because you're not a tree. And I really felt like that. I was stuck because I was stuck in my mind. But you have the opportunity and the power to shift and change things. And the first way that I was able to do that was figure out what it is that I wanted. There's a scripture in the Bible, Habakkuk 2:2. It says, write the vision and make it clear. And I had to create the vision. Okay, what do I want my life to look like? I wanted peace, which I'm pretty sure we all do. And I said, okay, so I'm going to now do actions that are going to provide me with that peace. And one of the things that I had to do was address my issue of getting offended. That was on me. Like, even after the breakup, that was on me because that issue of offense followed me into every relationship I have ever been in. Even when I was dating, that issue of offense was on me hard because I would immediately get offended by a lot of things. And I was just like, when you put up with things for so long, you kind of get to this point where you're like, I'm not going to accept this kind of treatment ever again. So you start cutting people off really, really soon. Like, when you go to this place of healing, you're in a healing journey and you're learning more about yourself. You start to be like, if you treat me like this, you're gone. If you just like, it's like that bye Felicia mentality, like you're cutting people off left and right. And that's not the answer either. Like, there's a way to set boundaries to where you're not cutting people off. It's a matter of communicating what it is that you really need in a way that's very clear. It's not dramatic. And I really just started to put effort towards the thing that I wanted to see, which was peace. And what does that look like? I started to literally develop a daily routine and add things in it that caused me peace, that caused me joy. I missed my joy. When you're hopeless, there's not a lot of joy there. I wasn't having a lot of fun. Remember, I said I wasn't hanging out. I wasn't being social. I wasn't, even my music choice had changed. Like, everything had shifted into this like sad, sad person. And it wasn't me. It wasn't the core of who I am. And I just really want you to just really, sometimes you have to go on that journey of just remembering the core of who you are. Like, who are you? Who are you? And when I thought about me, I'm silly, I'm fun, I'm nice, I'm loving, I'm affectionate, I'm compassionate, I'm sweet. I'm just very I remember there was this thing going on. I think it's still going on, the soft girl era. I think it's still going on because I was working with a private client a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, "Dr. Rose, I'm just gonna be in my soft girl era." I'm like, I don't care what you call it, girl. Like you go. Like I don't care what you call it. What it basically means is you're at the core of who you are. You're free, you're sweet, you're nice, you're loving, you're supportive. You don't have any ill will towards anyone. It is such a yummy and beautiful place to be when you can truly be yourself and allow someone to receive that. It's so beautiful, and I was so far from that. I had become hard, I had become cold, I had become distant, I had become avoidant. I had become all of this because I was just trying to protect myself. I was hyper vigilant, and I was like looking at a version of myself that I didn't even recognize. And I just desperately wanted to get back to the core of who I was. And the biggest way was I just had to begin to work on that state of hopelessness. And that really looked like me changing my actions and my focus. And if that's something that you really need help with mapping out what exactly that would look like, because I had to put strategic things in my daily life over a long period of time. I cannot say this enough. When you start working on yourself, when you realize, okay, I'm here and I want to get here. It is not an overnight process. You don't heal years of trauma, months of trauma, days of trauma in one private session, in one daily action, and you don't do it in a week. Like it takes time of consistent action. And I think so many times we lose momentum because we stop doing the thing that was working. Even though it was working, we stopped doing it to go do something new. And I think that a lot of times that happens in PMDD because we have this kind of like ADHD when it comes to things that can help our PMDD. It's like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do this. I remember earlier in my journey when I was trying different supplements, I was like that. I was like, I got to do that. I was taking a holistic approach, but I was taking a lot of different supplements. And I never got to a point of really understanding which supplement helped me because I never stuck with it long enough. Like if one supplement helps me, I would stop it and then go to use this and then go to use this. Sometimes a lot of things are not working in your life because you're not giving it time to work. And if something is working, you're stopping a lot of things that are working, even though they're working. Like there's no reason for you to stop it. There's no reason for you to stop it, but you literally stopped doing the things that work. And I want you to think about that right now. Have you stopped doing some things that are actually working for you? Have you stopped? So if that's something that you need help with, the first step I would say, because you're listening to this, you're going to still have time. So I'm going to release this. I'm going to push this up and release this tonight. So once it's done with my podcast producers, you should see it by Monday. Wednesday is when the trauma transformation group is starting. This is the best way to really get started with. If you know that you're in that place of feeling hopeless in your PMDD relationship, join this group. It is 8 weeks. It is completely free. It is live. It is with me and you and in small groups. You're going to be getting the support that you need to really get to a place of healing a lot of what you've gone through so that you can get out of this state of hopelessness. So until then, we got this. Love you. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.